Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another movie review with your boy Gore. That's me, and I am here to talk about the remake to the 1974 classic film starring Charles Bronson, and that is, of course, Death Wish. Has the same title, same name, Death Wish, Death Wish. And this one stars Bruce Willis and is directed by Eli Roth. Weird choice. I don't know why, but he directed it. All right. I mean, I kind of see why now after seeing the movie. I see here and there why he directed it, but I can still see anybody else directing it. I really can. The guy that wrote this, Joe Carnahan, was originally going to direct it, and I easily could see him doing it, especially since he's actually done some really solid action-esque movies in the past with some comedy, with some drama mixed in here and there. Like The Gray is a great drama, thriller, survival film with a little bit of action in there and some horror also. That's a great film. I love it. He also did Stretch, which is a comedy with some action in it. So he's done a lot of different stuff. Smoking Aces, iffy. I enjoyed it, kind of. It's very Quentin Tarantino-esque, but I enjoyed it. So I like that guy. So he wrote this. Of course, Eli Roth directed it, who, of course, did Hostel. Oh, God. I don't like those movies. I don't like the movies, especially not the third one, which he didn't direct. So, whatever. Cabin Fever, which I actually kind of enjoyed. It was simple and silly, but it was good. I kind of enjoyed it. Knock Knock, which I did not enjoy, and The Green Inferno, which I enjoyed when it wasn't trying to make fucking stupid jokes, which is it's so weird that movie even tried to do that. I don't know. What are you doing, Eli Roth? I know you like to add humor to situations that shouldn't have humor, but you gotta stop, especially when it's a movie about cannibals, especially when it's a movie like this, which I'm going to tell you right here, he does that in this movie. But I was actually kind of looking forward to it because I thought the trailers looked kind of fun. I mean, it's Death Wish, and the first movie is very visceral and gritty and I guess kind of realistic. It's not supposed to be realistic, really, but it's more realistic than this. I could assure you that. Where it's like, a guy that, is a regular dude. He was an architect in the original. Here he's a doctor that, of course, loses his wife, gets his daughter is in a coma. He pretty much loses his family, really. It's because of a couple of criminals. So he goes out looking for them, and along the way, he takes out some other criminals, and he becomes kind of famous. He's known as the Grim Reaper. He's just going around murdering criminals, and that's really the premise of this movie and the original. This one does a little bit differently here and there, but for the most part, it is straight up a remake. It's a very simple story. Death Wish always has been, but the original Death Wish was one of those movies that you didn't see too much back in the 70s. The 1974 Death Wish is I would say, a benchmark movie when it comes to revenge stories in film. And that movie was very popular for a reason, and that's what, I mean, there's a reason why there's like, 3 or 4 sequels? Like, there's so many Death Wish movies. So there's a reason. It's simple, but it's effective, and Charles Bronson was a really good lead actor for that kind of movie. I mean, he might not be doing like Keanu Reeves shit, but he's badass in his own way. And I think Bruce Willis does fit that title here. He does a good job. You could tell he's emoting. He's actually trying, which is weird considering Bruce Willis nowadays never tries. You can see him in so many movies in the past few years. Yeah, like when it comes to movies, he doesn't really care anymore. You can kind of tell, and I don't know, maybe something happened in the last couple years, but he's kind of changed, I feel like. And this, you can kind of tell he actually is trying. He might not be great in it, and I would have preferred Frank Grillo, who originally was going to be Paul Kersey in this, who I thought would fit a little bit better when it comes to the action. Maybe not so much as being a doctor and stuff, because Frank Grillo, even though he's in his 50s, he's very much in shape, and he looks like he could fit an action star, which Bruce Willis can too. Maybe not now though, because he's like in his mid 60s. But he did, I mean, of course, Bruce Willis has been an action star almost his entire career, so that's just what Bruce Willis is now. But I think Bruce Willis does a good job here. He emotes. He does decent with the action. The action itself is well filmed. It's solid enough. You can tell what's going on. There's a lot of gunfights, a lot of a lot of practical effects, a lot of blood getting sprayed everywhere. People's heads get crushed and brains spill out. People get cut up and tortured. People get shot. A lot of people get shot. And I know there's a lot of controversy about this movie being like pro-gun, and I never felt that way. I felt like the movie was just trying to be another Death Wish movie, just be a simple little revenge film about a guy who buys a gun and kills a bunch of criminals, and it's just supposed to be there to be, at times dramatic and at times just be an action film. I was never offended by it. I never thought I would be too. And I know it's coming out at the wrong time, but you can't give the movie too much shit because it was supposed to come out in November last year. They delayed it because of what happened earlier that year. And they couldn't delay it this time because it was only like 2 weeks in between what happened earlier in February. And that sucks. I really do feel for everybody that was affected by that. But the movie itself had to come out sometime. So came out, not a good time. But when I go into a movie, I can suspend whatever's happening in the real world and just go into a movie and expect to enjoy it. And when it comes to enjoying it, I did. Like I said, the action is solid. Bruce Willis is doing his job when most of the time he's sleepwalking in the last few movies, at least I've seen him in, especially all those straight to DVD movies. Oh, he's in a lot of those now. Like, he doesn't need to, I feel like he could still be in movies like this, but he just has, from what I've heard, a shitty attitude when it comes to like the Expendables or where his relationship with Kevin Smith, and just you see like the interview he did for Red 2, you can see he has a shit interview. I mean, he has a shit interview. It was a shit interview, but he has a shit attitude. And I'm glad to see him trying again, it looks like. And I've seen interviews, and I've seen him like actually go to special screening of Death Wish and try to surprise people and stuff. It seems like he's trying to be a better person, so I appreciate that. And when it comes to the movie, you can tell he's trying, and he's good in it. He does a good job of emoting when he has to, when he's like there to look like he's having a good time while murdering these criminals. He does a good job there. And I found the movie to really lack in some other aspects besides just the characterization. Like when it came to the actors, everybody did a fine job. It has a decent supporting cast. Vincent D'Onofrio is really good as a Paul, not Paul, well, that's his name, Paul, but Bruce Willis's character's brother, Frank, in this. Paul is Bruce Willis's character. And he does a good job. He has a good relationship with his brother. The daughter was really good. Elizabeth Shue was really good in the film for the little bit she's in it. Everybody does a good job. Dean Norris, who of course was from Breaking Bad, plays a cop in here. He's really good. Kimberly Elise plays his partner, and she's good. Everybody's solid. Everybody is solid. No one's terrible. The writing itself is standard. It's generic stuff. Nothing too great. There's a couple of one-liners here and there. Bruce Willis does a good job with that stuff. But what it's lacking is a solid director, I feel like, because even though the action itself is solid, you can tell what's going on. There's a lot of moments where you're just like, you can tell like the pacing is weird and the blend of humor is just way off. It really is. Like, they could have a scene where Bruce Willis is crying because his daughter's in a coma and he's really sad about it, and then it'll jump cut to him with his therapist, and he's just like cracking jokes like, oh, I'm having a good time murdering criminals and stuff. There's a really weird tonal shift in this film, and there's not just one, there's many of them where it's just like, it's drama, then it's humor and fun, and Back in Black, you know, they play that song, and oh, he's murdering, here's a montage of him killing criminals and stuff, and he's straight up executing criminals for doing stuff like, you know, like jacking a car. Just someone steals a car and he executes both of those motherfuckers. I was like, Jesus. And what I like about it is that they do a decent job of actually showing the news how they are responding to it, and they're not just like, yeah, he's going around murdering these criminals, it's what we need. You have people that are saying that, but you also have people saying like, hey, this is not good, he's going around doing this. I mean, sure, he's killing people that are criminals, but this is still something that is not a good influence for other people, because other people are going to be influenced by this and go around and start shooting people as well. And they actually do show that a little bit. I wish they went into further detail with that, because they do show like one guy not pretending, but going out and being the Grim Reaper character, who is Bruce Willis's character, and him getting shot and killed. So they show a little bit of that, which I do appreciate. But for the most part, the movie itself doesn't really focus on that. It focuses more, of course, on Bruce Willis and him just going around killing random criminals, while also trying to figure out who the criminals were that killed his wife, and of course put his daughter in a coma. So I feel like when it comes to like the humor and the pacing, the tonal shifts, that's where it really falls apart. The movie itself isn't too long. It's like maybe an hour and 40 minutes. So I appreciate that the movie doesn't overstay its welcome. Bruce Willis does a decent job. The action is solid. I did have a good time. There are some really awesome moments in this movie. There's a scene involving a car, which you see in the trailer, which if you didn't watch the Red Band trailer, let me just tell you, that scene is incredibly violent, and you can tell that's where Eli Roth really does shine, because the practical effects and the gore effects are really well done, and you can tell he's the one who probably pushed for that, because he's very much into the practical effects and gore. So he's just like, those original Death Wish movies, they had a lot of violence, don't get me wrong, but at least the first one didn't really have people's heads exploding. People got shot a lot. There's a lot of parts where Charles Bronson's walking around and he sees a mugging. He just pulls out a gun, bam, 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 bam. All right, and then he's on a train, and then a guy comes up and slices his newspaper. He's like, oh no, don't kill me, bam, bam, bam. Like, there's a lot of scenes like that where muggers just come up and they look like monsters. Like, they're like, eh. And then Charles Bronson goes, bam, and then they're dead. There's a lot of scenes like that in the Death Wish franchise. And this one, he tries to switch it up by having a lot of blood and violence. Like, there's giant splats of blood that hit the wall when someone gets shot. Some guy gets hit in the head with a bowling ball. You can see his skull crack open and it actually dents in. And then he lands on his gun and explodes his own head with his own gun. There's one part with a car, like I said, where the car falls on a guy's head and freaking brains everywhere. But before that, Bruce Willis tortures the guy by cutting open his leg and pouring brake fluid into it. So there's a lot of violence in this. There's even one scene with the main villain, who, by the way, the main villain was weak as hell. That is really good and very violent and really awesome. I'm just going to say that. It's towards the end of the movie. You most likely will know what I'm talking about. There's even a scene where, like, a henchman falls down the stairs, and not even falls down the stairs. He falls off the railing, like the up railing of where the stairs are. Doesn't fall down the stairs. He just falls off and just breaks his neck, and the camera keeps showing you this, and his face is like all contorted, and his legs all bent up, and it's all messy. His head's like dented in, if I remember correctly. It's all messed up. So they do a good job when it comes to the special effects. I keep saying special effects, the practical effects and gore. So I give them credit there, and there's some really fun moments there where if you're in this movie with a bunch of friends or a nice audience, then they will react accordingly. And my audience definitely reacted accordingly, especially with that car scene. It's just like, there's just some problems I really had with it. It's not as visceral as the original. The cop characters, Dean Norris and Kimber Elise, they're both good, but they're kind of ineffectual. And towards the end of the movie, they do the same thing that the original Death Note movie kind of does. I said Death Note. I knew I was going to do it. Death Wish movie did. But in a much stupider and like, screw it way. Like, in the original, it actually made kind of sense. Not really, but it made more sense in the original what happened with his character than it did in this movie with the cop characters and the Paul Kersey character. I don't know. And of course the bad timing. The humor is all messed up. The bad timing. It's humongously bad timing. But I can't give the studio too much crap, because they did delay it once. And then it was 2 weeks before the movie was coming out. They were already having TV spots and stuff. What are they going to do? They spent millions of dollars already. They had to have released it. Especially since the movie probably, if they kept delaying it, would make less and less money, and they would have lost millions and millions. So I'm sure they weren't going like, screw the shootings or whatever. They just had to put it out there because they're going to lose millions of dollars on this film. So yeah, it does. And it's not like it's about a guy going around killing innocent people. It's about a guy shooting people, sure, but it's criminals. So at least you could say that. I know that's probably a shitty thing to say, but it's a movie. It is a movie. It's silly. It's dumb. It's violent as all hell, sure, but it has a sense of humor about it, which at times does not balance well at all. But there's times where it can be a little funny here and there. And you can tell, like, it's not taking that gun stuff too seriously. There's a whole scene involving a gun store called Jolly Rogers that is so over the top, and it's such a parody. And they even try to make like some political, not political humor, but they try to joke about how easy it is to get a gun. Like there's a character that's like a 25-year-old blonde woman that works at this gun store that's all talking to Bruce Willis like, it's easy to get a gun. Here, you buy it, and then we give you some paperwork, and there, bam, it's legal. So they're like trying to make some jokes here. So it doesn't feel pro-gun. It doesn't feel pro-vigilanteism, is that a word? But it feels like a goofy little dumb action movie that at times isn't goofy. It's trying to actually be dramatic, and that's the problem. I feel like that's the main problem, is that Eli Roth just does not handle that well when it comes to directing. Like, writing, it might actually look okay written, but you can tell Eli Roth doesn't know how to pull back and just make a straightforward movie. you know, without any humor, or maybe just little bits of humor. A little bits of humor is okay, especially when in this movie you have this character Paul Kersey, who is straight up an anti-hero, feeling better about himself because he's killing criminals. So you get a little humor there. That's a little bit of black comedy. That's fine, but just I don't know, it just doesn't mix well. I did have a good time though. I can't say I didn't, because I definitely did. There's some really fun moments. The action was solid. Bruce Willis was good in it, even though we like to see Frank Grillo. And the supporting cast was decent. And I don't know, the first like few, I don't know, I would say first 15-20 minutes actually did a good job of building up that relationship between him and his wife and his daughter and stuff. And when it happens, it's like, oh, okay, it's doing an okay job, and Bruce Willis actually shedding some tears. He's doing a good job. So I was with it. I was like, okay, this isn't too bad so far. That's about it. So I'd give it a 24 out of 40, which ends up being a 6 out of 10. It's above average, and I would recommend it if you're bored and you have nothing to see this weekend. But I think there's about 25 movies coming out this weekend. So, yeah, I think you have plenty to watch. So if you want to watch it, go ahead. It's a fine time. Just don't go into it if you are someone that gets easily offended when it comes to like gun violence. Don't see it. You will hate it. You definitely will. I enjoyed it though. Sorry. I guess I'm just an insensitive prick. Yeah, maybe. But there you go. Thank you, and until next time, goodbye.